how to get better at drawing. What you're watching now is not directly related to my 8 points, but it does demonstrate how the 8 points have worked in my own drawing practice. And I'm now able to draw things in a way that I really never thought I would. And can I also say that point number 5, I think, is the most important of all of them. So jump ahead and get to point number 5 if you want to bail before that. That's where it made most sense to put it. So point number 1 on how to get better at drawing is I need to actually draw. Looking at drawings that other people have done, feeling that I have it inside me to draw, that I have this artistic urge, maybe having this urge deep buried inside for 10, 20, 30 years, having done some nice drawings when I was a kid, thinking about drawing all the time when I sit in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the way to work, fantasizing about being a famous artist with a huge Instagram account, or even looking at YouTube videos on how to draw. None of these things are the same as actually drawing. I have to actually draw if I want to get better. That's the first point. If I want to get better at drawing, I actually have to get myself to draw. Point number 2 is I need to start right now. I need to start right now, especially if I've been thinking about it for years. That shows that I've become very good at making right now not the best time. But it will never be the right time. I need to use the time I have now, whether it's 15 or 20 minutes in my lunch break, whether it's 15 minutes before I get dinner ready or after dinner or after the kids are in bed, if it's an hour on a Sunday afternoon, whatever works for my schedule is best. I just need to start in whatever time I've got. It doesn't need to be a large time slot. And I need to use the equipment I have now. I don't have to wait till I've read the best reviews on the best pens or the best paper. I can use whatever pen or pencil I have lying around. I can use A4 copy paper. I need to use the space I have available now. I don't need a studio. I don't even need a whole table. I can balance paper on a book on my knee. Certainly don't need to do a course or even watch a single YouTube video. All of these things are often just excuses to actually delay having to draw. And it takes me to my third point in how to get better at drawing. I need to put aside my fear of failing. Of course I won't be as good when I start as I will become later on. This drawing you see I'm drawing now, I could never have done this a couple of years ago. I would never think if I started playing a musical instrument that I would start at performance level. So why do I think that my early drawings need to be at exhibition or display standard? There will be wrong lines in my drawings, just as there are wrong notes when I start to play music. But if I practice an instrument, there will be less wrong notes. And if I practice at drawing, there will be less wrong lines. It's part of the journey of finding the right notes and the right lines. And look, if perfection is going to be the standard for what I do, then I will never do anything. Mistakes never look as bad as when I've just made them, especially if I make them early in a drawing when there's still lots of blank paper. And I always draw the correct line in place over the top of the wrong one. And I find that the brain favors the correct line because it sees most strongly what it expects to see, what it wants to see, and it ignores the one that's not quite right. But if I only leave the wrong line, then the brain is left thinking, something not quite right. So look, mistakes aren't as bad even if you do make them. They're certainly not a reason to put off starting to draw. If you're particularly nervous about making mistakes, can I suggest that you start drawing directly in ink and not use pencil at all? If I can't erase incorrect lines, then I have to learn to push through making them. I can't let them hold me up. And sometimes when I first started, my need for accuracy and perfection in my drawings meant I spent more time erasing wrong lines than I actually spent drawing. I would have learned how to draw better a lot quicker if I hadn't been so preoccupied with wrong lines. So I have to put to one side my fear of failing if I want to learn to draw better. My fourth point is I need to limit the art materials that I use. I need to choose to use what I want to use. Whatever medium excites me most is the one I should use. Whether it's pencil on paper or oil paint on canvas, I should use the medium that excites me. But whatever it is, stay with it in a very limited way at the start. So if it's drawing with line, using ink and pen, then sure, use different pens, try different inks, try different papers, experiment with different ways of drawing lines, of creating effects with lines. But don't switch to pastels and try watercolors and then try pencil and colored pencils. The old saying, jack of all trades and master of none, has stuck around for a reason. If we go shallow in lots of areas, we will never go deep in any one of them. If I want to get better at drawing, it's easier if I go deeper in one area of art practice, especially at the start. If you get really good at, say, drawing in ink, then if you go to try watercolor later, you will start much further ahead than you think you will, because many of the skills you develop by going deep and becoming really good with your pen line drawing will actually be applicable, often directly so, to watercolor. I painted in oil paints on canvas, Australian trees and flowers for 10 years before I did any drawing. And I was amazed at how relevant a lot of the skills I developed with my oil painting were when I actually started to draw. Now we come to point number 5. This is, I think, the single most important point, just as relevant whether we're just starting out or whether we've been drawing for a long time. We need to learn to observe our reference, whether it's a photo or whether we're looking at something in real life, much more carefully, and learn to see the details that we need to see to be able to draw it accurately. I'll say it one more time. We need to learn to observe much more carefully in order to accurately draw what we're looking at. We need to see the key details that we need to see in order to accurately put those points on our paper. And most of the time, we glance, we think we've seen it, and then we draw what we think we've seen. And the difference between how our drawing looks in our reference is the difference, usually, I think, between what we think we've seen and what's actually there. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about drawing architecture or figures, landscapes, animals, flowers, portraits, cars. For every subject, there are key details that we need to see if we're to accurately draw. And we usually lack the skill to understand, to observe those details well enough if our drawings are failing to live up to the accuracy of the objects. I personally feel that 90% of accurate drawing flows directly from accurate observing and only about 10% from our drawing skills. But the good news for that is that all of us are much better drawers than we think we are. Our problem is more that we aren't as good at observing, and so we need to put time into observing. And this is why we normally draw better, more accurate drawings of subjects that we really like than subjects that we have no interest in, because we've looked more carefully already at these subjects simply because we enjoy them. I find it very hard to draw cars because I have no interest in cars. I prefer architecture, and you can tell that in my drawings. We need to learn to observe the details that we need to observe in order to draw our subject accurately. That is the most important topic of all. I have 4 or 5 videos that just look at observing for drawing success, that it might be helpful to watch if this isn't an area that you've thought of before. And I particularly talk about ways of seeing a reference in a way that will give us the information we need to represent it well on paper. Point number 6 on how to get better at drawing is choose a subject niche. This flows directly from what we've been talking about. It's easier to look carefully at something we enjoy seeing, and we probably already know a lot about it. And it's easier to be patient and steady in our drawing when we're enjoying the subject. It's easier to develop the skills we need for accuracy with a subject that's more restricted, where we're drawing the same sorts of things. For me, with architecture, I'm drawing perspective all the time. So it helps me really come to understand it and get a feel for it, learn to anticipate even how it should be. So it's easier to see it. And also just to develop little techniques that, for me, make it easier to draw accurately. But they're not going to be any use to me at all if I want to draw a horse. Having a restricted subject will really help me develop skills that will create better drawings. Similarly, as it is with the materials we use, the process skills that I develop in doing that will transfer very readily to other subjects once I've developed them. How to get better at drawing? Point number 7, and this might be the most controversial, is to avoid copying drawings by other artists. You see, it's easier to copy artwork by someone else than it is to create our own artwork. And so therefore it's satisfying to do it because we get a better result. But it doesn't develop in me the creative thinking skills that are necessary to translate a reality in front of me or a photo into a drawing using whatever medium I'm using. And it's that creative process in my brain that's what I need to develop, even more importantly than I need to develop the technical skills. It's like translating a language, and that is the hardest part of a drawing. When I copy what someone else has drawn, I'm copying their creative decisions. I don't have to make any creative decisions myself. I'm simply copying their solutions. Because we get better at what we practice, then yes, I'll get better at copying. But if what I want to do is to draw original drawings myself, then this won't help me do that at all. Is there any way to use other artists' works? Certainly, whose works we wish we could do. That's something I do, and I still do. But instead of trying to copy their work, I use their work to inspire me to produce my own drawings. I might look at what they do and analyze how they do it. How do they create that effect which I think works so well, that might work better than what I'm doing at the moment? How can I do that? But at some point then I put their drawing away and I draw possibly a similar subject. But I still do it myself now without copying their solutions. I use their solutions to help inform my thinking, my creative processes in coming up with my own solutions for the problem of how do I represent that in my drawing. And that brings us to our 8th and final point on how to get better at drawing. I need to practice. We get better at what we repeat. And this has come into a number of the other points, but it's worth thinking on its own as our final point. We get better at what we repeat. And I will improve at what I do repeatedly, whether it's making time to sit down and start to draw, whether it's not letting fear stop me drawing, whether it's learning to observe my reference to see what I need to see to draw it accurately better, whether it's simply drawing straight lines or rendering a difficult subject texture. I will get better at it the more practice I have at doing it. Again, it's like playing the piano. We need to practice an instrument if we're going to improve, and a little bit frequently is in the end going to be more helpful at developing our skills than a big chunk in one go and then not doing it again for a long time. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this helpful. These 8 points are all points that I found helpful and I know benefited me in my own drawing practice and skill development. So I hope they're helpful for you. And even the simple ones, don't underestimate how significant they are as we go on with our drawing. So keep at it, have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.